Obviously, Bill Toupence was an important part of the
Oh, he was
formation.
absolutely essential, no
Okay.
doubt.
And he knew Bill, or he knew John already in some wise?
They met. They met when they arrived here. It was just pure serendipity. The two of the world's leading scholars on Bradbury. Toupence had done, if not the first doctoral dissertation on Bradbury, it was one of the first.
Okay.
Focusing on the poetics of reverie
And the Carnivalesque?
yes, he was. And I actually that's something that interested me in my undergrad. I think Toupence and I would have had a lot to talk about had I
So you never met him?
never met him. He passed away in June of 2017, and I started here July of 2017.
Unexpected?
So yeah, it was
Chronic illness?
No, it was a sudden heart attack. Yeah,
Wow.
it just I think shocked everybody. And that October, I mean, we've got Toupence had an incredible library, a massive comic book collection. His children and his ex-wife, so not widowed, but they were still close, gifted all of that to us. So we've got all 20,000 of his comic books in secure storage, and then we've got his very impressive reference library, science fiction, fantasy, and horror. That's really he provided some very important volumes.
Did he leave behind any kind of an essay or letter or something in which he avowed his hopes for something like this to happen?
Well, he was very involved at the center. He was the first director. You know, John was the director of the IAT. So the way the hierarchy works here, at the school level, there's an institute called the Institute for American Thought, and within that we have the Santayana editions, the Peirce editions, the Frederick Douglass papers, and of course the Center for Ray Bradbury Studies, and probably a couple of others that I'm not thinking of right now. And so Toupence, I think, wanted a center that would allow a course release that would allow him to continue his scholarly work on Bradbury. So he's the one who got the permission from Ray. You know, he was the one that asked Ray if we could establish the critical edition. And Ray was hesitant at first because we're looking at his earliest stories when he was a very raw young writer. And we are collecting the stories. Basically, the sleuthing for those critical editions is to find Bradbury's original settled intent as a young writer before it went to the publishers, before anybody edited it or made any changes. So those 3 volumes of the critical edition of the collected stories of Ray Bradbury, that was Toupence's vision. But John did the type of sleuthing and investigative forensic type work. That was really John Eller's specialty.
But Toupence had access to Ray physically? He knew him? Had met
Ray
him
on a couple of occasions.
Okay.
Yes. When
he had not been in the basement like John had been?
I think he went out there once with John. Toupence was very quiet, very reserved, from what I understand. And it takes him a while. It took him a while to warm up to people. He was very introverted, and that was even true with Ray. And I was asking John. I said, "Do you feel like there was a little bit starstruck? You know, here's the guy that he's done so much of his scholarly work on, built his career on, and he's hanging out with him in Los Angeles." And John said that may have been part of it, but you know, Bill was just very reserved, and John was insistent, whenever you sit down and talk with Ray, get the recorder going. And finally, towards the end of the visit, you know, Toupence kind of came out of his shell and was asking Ray some things, and there was that whole interview that appears at the end of Life of Fiction about Mr. Electrico, the Ray's monologue that they transcribed and put at the end of that book. That happened because Toupence was asking Ray about the Carnivalesque and the carnival atmosphere, the carnival spirit that appears in so much of his work.